Today we're going to be taking a look at how to create a module on Canvas. So what you want to do is go to your Canvas course, and we're going to hover over here and click on modules. So first of all, let's just get an overview of what a module is. I have a couple examples already created here. This one is my Hero's Journey unit for one of my units that my classes go through. And when I click on this drop down, you can see all of the different materials I have linked together in a module. So if you click into any one of these, it will open up either a page or an assignment or a quiz, any of the types of things you can create in Canvas itself. So typically the first page of a module can be a unit overview like you see here, and then the subsequent tabs here could be things like the actual content students are reading or assignments they're completing, etc. So the best way to think of a module is a bit like a binder. The module is just the placeholder for the materials that go inside the binder, whether those materials are just readings for the students or actual assignments or quizzes or any discussions. Any of the things that students can really do that you create over here can be added to a module. So for an example, the second page of this module is an introduction to archetypes. That's important for students to see and study with for the Hero's Journey. At the bottom of this page, you'll notice that you can hit this next button and it will take the students to the next item within that module or binder, if you will. So you get to choose what order you are adding documents into and what exactly you are creating. So let's play around with this technology, again, by going to that Modules tab. And to create one, we are going to hit Add Module. You're going to want to give your module a name. And then that's going to show up here in my modules tab, and it's probably going to add all the way at the bottom. So I have many different modules that I've created for lots of different classes. So I'm going to drag this one up to the top, because if this were your class, you would probably want it at the top for your students to see first. So it's important to realize that you can have modules sitting here in your own teacher view, but if you don't have them published, so if I switch this to unpublished status, when your students come to your modules page in Canvas, they're only going to see the modules you have published. So you could have 20 modules in existence, but only publish one, and your students could only see one at a time. So you control that here. Within the actual module itself, going back to this example I already have, I have pages that are published and unpublished. So for instance, I've taught this Hero's Journey unit a few times, and so at this point I have a very large module created, but I only have the pages published that are relevant to my class at this particular time. So even though I may have given this to students in the past, maybe this year I don't think it's necessary, so I'm not going to publish it for them to access. All right, so what we're going to do here when creating a new module is we're going to keep it unpublished probably for now, and we're going to hit this plus button, and then you're going to click on it another time. So I just hit that twice. So this text box is important because we want to decide here what is it that we're trying to add to this module. So your options are, is it an assignment, a quiz, a file, a page, a discussion, etc. And I typically don't use these three options too frequently. Usually what I'm creating is a page or an assignment, and then sometimes I'll add in the discussions and the quizzes as necessary. Something that you can do here is actually create all of your content as pages if you wish, and then you could create an assignment later that simply links to this page. Some people prefer that because assignments come with dates and they show up in the gradebook and you kind of have to hide them. So if you don't want to deal with that, if you have a bunch of assignments that you're going to be adding or front loading, sometimes people prefer to create a lot of pages, and then when you create an assignment later, it's simply just the title of that page and a link to this page, and you don't have to put more details in that assignment you're creating to not kind of duplicate your efforts. Otherwise, you can just create an assignment. So this is if you are starting from scratch. So you wanted to hit add this page, and then you're going to hit create page, or you can choose any page you already have created in Canvas. So let's say that you already have all your materials. You just need to link them together into a module. Then this is going to be a very quick process for you. So I would probably scroll down and find my hero's journey information. Here is one of my pages. If that were my home page, then I would want to click on add item. And so now when I click on this, it's going to open up this page, and I can continue to add. And let's pretend that now I'm ready for one of my assignments. I can click here to create an assignment, or I can go through the list of all the assignments that I have. So Lancelot's story is one of the first stories I use for this Hero's Journey unit. I can add that to my module now. So if you needed to update any of the dates here, you would do that by clicking onto the assignment itself and then hitting edit and changing that just as you normally would on an assignment. So again, if you've already been using Canvas to create your assignments and your pages, everything's going to work like normal. You're simply just creating this binder and linking it all together here. So you click this plus button, decide what you're adding, and then creating it from scratch. So let's pretend we're going to do that now. Add item. Name it first. So pretend that this is something I'm going to add related to archetypes. So now that I've added it, there's nothing in here because I just created it for the first time. So I'm going to want to click into it and now hit edit and put in all my details. And keep in mind that when you create an assignment, you can make this information as basic or as developed as you wish. So even in an assignment, you can use the Canvas CityLab tools over here to do things like add in a theme and create a nice looking page, but in an actual assignment. So you can still add content like this, modify it, and add a content block if you wish, etc. So you can still make your assignments pretty fancy. When you're finished creating your assignment and putting your information here, whatever directions you have, assigning your point values, etc., all this detail and your due dates, or if you don't have one yet, that's fine. You can hit save. And now when we go back to modules and click into this one that we've created, this is now updated because that's the work we just did. So this is the overview of how to use modules. Like I said, it's just essentially a binder that you are collecting either all the materials that you've already created for a unit and putting them into a nice order, or creating just a new unit from scratch and linking it from the very beginning. So the next question is the student user interface. So students see exactly what we see here as long as you have this information published. So what you need to think about is if they click on this drop down, you might understand Lancelot's story and archetypes, but they might be confused. So you might want to consider how you are naming your files or items, I should say, within this module. So some people prefer to do it with dates and some people prefer to do it by lessons. So if I click on that Peapod and edit, I can then add lesson 1 here. And then I could kind of make that consistent for everything I have linked in this module, lesson 2, and so on. Another option is to name it by week 1 or whatever the dates of the weeks are that you will be working in. So you could have a new module for every week, for instance, as opposed to putting everything within the unit. Some people prefer to say that their module is this upcoming week. So, September 1st through September 5th, week 1 of school would be a module. Week 2 of school could be another module. So, those are different ways to kind of use this tool, thinking about the student user experience. So hopefully that overview helps you see how you can use modules to link all of your content together and create a nice sense of organization in Canvas for both you and for your students. Good luck!